Chapter 8, Thunder Cave. I didn't sleep very well. At about 4 in the morning, I got out of bed, dressed, and quietly left the apartment without waking Sam. Going to see Tall had been on my mind for a long time. A week before my mom died, I had asked her if we could go see him. Of course, as soon as I have a free weekend. I would have plenty of time to go up there and come back before my plane left. It was either that or spend the day at the airport. Before Tall went into the convalescent home, he lived by himself in a small apartment in the Bronx. When I was younger, I spent quite a bit of time with him. He'd tell me about his childhood on the Hopi Reservation in Arizona and take me up in the skyscrapers he had worked on as a young man. It took us over 3 years to build this one. The winter was bad the year we got to the top. The wind blew in gusts and there was ice on the girders. We spent more time dangling from our safety ropes than we did walking on the steel. And then his mind started to slip. He would wander away from his apartment and forget where he lived. They took him to the best doctors in New York, but they all said the same thing. He's an old man. There's nothing we can do to reverse that. You'll have to keep a close eye on him. For a few months he lived with us, but it didn't work out. We had a 2-bedroom apartment, and we couldn't afford a bigger one, which meant that he had to stay in my room. I didn't mind, but he had insomnia, and every night he would turn on the television and all the lights and wander around talking to himself. None of us slept. Because my parents both worked, they had to leave him alone during the day. More often than not, they'd come home to find him gone, and the search would begin. My mother called police stations and hospitals, while my father and I walked the streets checking shelters, asking people if they'd seen him. A couple of times we found that he'd been beaten up. Another time, he'd been hit by a car. They found a place that would take him during the day, a daycare center for old people. Apparently, Tall didn't like that. He managed to escape 3 or 4 times, and eventually they said he couldn't stay there anymore. My father wanted to take him back to Arizona, but the catch was that Tall wanted us to move too, so we could be close to him. I was all for it, but my mother flatly refused. She didn't want to leave her position at the university, a position that she had worked very hard for. Finally, my father put him in the home near Poughkeepsie, and luckily Tall seemed to like it there. He hadn't once tried to wander away. The train left for Poughkeepsie at 6:30. I carried my bike onto the train. The train was nearly empty. Most people were coming into the city, not leaving it. I found a window seat and got comfortable. I pulled out the folder with all of my father's letters and photographs. I had taken them with me because I didn't want anything to happen to them in the move. I felt that they would be safe with Tall until I got back. The letters my dad sent during the last year were much more personal than in previous years. They read like journal entries. I think that the main reason I chose to study animals in this field is so I can be in wild places. I feel at home here. Studying elephants is like going back into prehistoric times. In size, elephants are the closest thing we have to dinosaurs. There are days when I feel as though there is nothing we can do for elephants. I feel that the only good I am doing is recording the extinction of one of the most magnificent animals that ever walked the earth. We biologists don't talk much about how animals feel. It's not scientific. But after watching elephants all these years, I'm convinced that they feel strong emotions. All you have to do is watch a mother elephant with her calf. I believe that the elephants are just as capable of love and grief as we are. The most recent letters were about the drought and how this was affecting the elephants and the people of Kenya. The drought has made poaching very easy. The animals must drink, and the poachers simply wait at the watering holes. Most of the mature bull elephants have been killed for their ivory. To keep up with the demand for ivory, poachers now kill twice as many young bulls and cows. In 1970, there were 140,000 elephants in Kenya. Today, there are less than 20,000. If this continues, the elephant will be gone from Kenya by the end of the century. The ban on ivory has doubled the price on the black market, making poaching a very profitable business. The poachers have no problem finding people to help with the killing. The people in the bush are so hungry that most of them help the poachers in exchange for meat from the fallen animal. The poachers provide the people with food, jobs, and money. It's hard for the people to resist. Some poaching bands use automatic weapons to kill elephants. Others use arrows. They dip the arrows into a poisonous black tar. All they have to do is get close enough to an elephant to put an arrow into it anywhere on its body. Once the arrow is placed, they wait. The poison acts on the nerves that control the heart. They simply follow the elephant until it collapses, and then they go to work. As I read through the letters, I began to worry about my father's reaction to my coming to Africa. He had enough problems and might not want to deal with another one in the form of his son. When I found him, what if he put me back on the airplane bound for Nebraska? Technology has brought us many wonderful things, but I think that we have lost more than we have gained from these wonderful inventions. Technology allows us to take more from the land than we need, and this is often more than the land can bear. We can shoot all the animals with guns and take all of the nutrients out of the soil with chemicals. Trains and airplanes can get us places quicker so we can exploit those places. These inventions came so quickly that we didn't have time to develop an ethic for using them. I realize that technology is here to stay, but are we better off? Without technology, we would have fewer options, but with fewer options, perhaps we would be able to make better decisions. Well, Dad, I thought, I may not be making the best decision right now, but I'm very thankful for the options because they're going to take me to you. The train pulled into Poughkeepsie Station at about 8:30. I got on my bike and started for the retirement home. It was a beautiful morning with more blue sky than gray. It took me about an hour to ride to the home. On nice days like today, Tall was usually outside. He had a special chair next to the small creek that ran in the back of the home. He'd sit there for hours staring at the stream. I always wondered what he thought about while he sat there, what he saw during those long hours by the stream. It had been at least 6 months since I'd seen him. I never knew what he was going to be like on these visits. Some days he remembered everything, my name, my mother, his name, and where he was. Other days he had no idea what was going on. He'd jump from one thing to another. One moment he was running around the reservation with his childhood friends. The next moment he was on a skyscraper in New York talking with one of his buddies. I walked my bike around back. There were about 20 people staying in the home. It looked like most of them were outside. Some of them were in the wheelchairs. Others sat around a picnic table where a nurse was calling out bingo numbers. A group of men sat at a card table playing poker. Others were working on craft projects, painting, needlework, and ceramics. "Hey, Jake!" Peter, one of the orderlies, came trotting up to me. "I can't believe this." "Can't believe what?" I asked, leaning my bike against the fence. "Your grandfather said that you were on your way here." "He what?" I couldn't believe it either. "He said you were coming here." He said, "Did you call and tell him?" "No." "I didn't think so," he said. "I told him not to be disappointed if you didn't show." The old fart just smiled at me like I didn't know what I was talking about. I guess he was right. There was no way Tall could have known unless Sam had called. "Did my stepfather call?" I asked. "Nope, pretty weird." That was an understatement. I looked over towards the creek and saw my grandfather sitting in his usual spot, looking at the water, unaware that I had arrived. Peter looked at his watch. "He's going to be taking his nap soon. How about a game of chess when he does?" Peter and I usually play chess when Tall napped. I'm kind of on a tight schedule, I said. We'll see. The train for New York left at 3:19. I didn't want to miss it. Well, let me know, Peter said. The board's set up in the office. Okay, I said, and walked over to Tall. Not even my father knew exactly how old Tall was, but he was probably well into his 80s. His long, white hair was unbraided and hung below his shoulders. Like my father, he was thin and wiry. He still looked strong, despite the fact that he hadn't done any physical labor in years. Hello, Tall, I said cheerfully. He looked at me and smiled, but didn't say anything. In a moment, I'd been able to tell if he was going to be with me or not. He continued to look at me. It's good to see you, I said. It's good to see you, he said. I knew you were coming. That's what Peter said. But do you know who I am? I thought. He didn't believe me, he said. He believes you now. Tall laughed, then looked back at the stream. I saw a fish rise, he said seriously. The first fish I've seen in a long time. It was beautiful. I thought I might as well see if he was with me. There's been some problems at home, I said. He looked back at me. My mom died a few days ago. As soon as I said it, a lump of grief rose in my throat. An accident, I continued. She was hit by a car while she was jogging. When I imagined the car hitting my mother, the grief exploded out of me. I couldn't hold it back. I sank to my knees in front of Tall and put my head in his lap, and as I sobbed, I felt his bony, old hand stroking my head. His touch was a great comfort to me, but I kept on weeping for what seemed like a long time. When I was done, I lifted my hand and wiped my tears from my face. Sorry, Tall. Sorry, he said. Sorry, don't be sorry. Tears are the greatest thing you can leave for someone who has passed to the underworld. To be missed is all they have left here. I looked at him. It was the first time I'd ever heard him speak of the Hopi way. What I knew of the Hopi beliefs I'd gotten from my father. The Hopi believe in life after death. The world they go to is like a mirror image of this world. When it is winter here, it is summer there. When someone dies here, someone is born in the underworld. I had tried to get Tall to tell me about the Hopi ways many times, but he always changed the subject, like he wasn't interested in talking about it. Your mother was a good woman, he said. I will miss her. She came to see me often. It was true. Even after she and my father divorced, she continued to visit. How did you know I was coming? I'm not sure, he said. I just felt it. Have you ever felt this way before? Not for a very long time, he said. Many years ago I used to feel things, know things that were about to happen. Lately, some of these things have been coming back to me. Tall was clear-headed. I was very happy I had come. I don't have a lot of time, I said. In a few hours I have to take the train back to New York. Back to Sam, he said. I was surprised he remembered who Sam was. Not exactly, I said. Can you keep a secret? All I have is secrets, he said. I'm going to Africa. He looked off in the direction of the creek and didn't say anything for a long time. I thought that he might be drifting off. Then he turned back to me and said, That explains it. Explains what? The dream, he said. 2 nights ago I saw you walking in a big land. You were not alone, but I could not see who you were with. Was I riding my bike? He looked surprised. No, you were walking. I'm taking my bike with me. To Africa? To ride to Dad's camp. He closed his eyes in concentration, then opened them again. There was no bike, but it could have been there. Those dreams are often incomplete. What else did you see? He thought a moment. Nothing. It was very dry, very hot, and you were tired. What about Dad? I didn't see him, he said. And I haven't seen him in a long time. He's been in Kenya. How long? A couple years. I was beginning to lose him. He always liked the dry places. I'm sure that Sam will be calling here on Sunday looking for me. I changed the subject. This sometimes brought Tall back.